Stepan lived in a concrete box on the outskirts of industrial Zaporizhzhia. His world was bounded by walls cluttered with old circuit boards, antennas, and Soviet radio receivers he scavenged from landfills and flea markets. For Stepan, the airwaves were a living organism. He loved listening to space, talking to Earth through the crackle of interference, the whispers of distant countries, and the heartbeat of the void. He was a ghost hunter of the airwaves, but one frequency had haunted him for years: 4,625 kHz, UVB-76, the buzzer, a station that never sleeps, broadcasting a monotonous, rusty sound resembling a malfunctioning conveyor belt.
It's not just a signal.
Stepan whispered, tuning his homemade amplifier.
It's a veil.
That evening, a heavy, iron-like cloud hung over the city. Stepan turned on an old Okeon receiver. The monotonous bzz, bzz, bzz filled the room. But suddenly, the sound changed. The buzzing was interrupted by a sharp screech, like a file being drawn across teeth.
Attention!
A dry, emotionless female voice rang out.
MDZHB 74-180. Stepan 0915. Transition.
Stepan froze. His own name had been broadcast on a station the whole world listens to. His heart hammered hot blood into his temples. He feverishly turned the tuning knob.
Stepan, do you hear us?
The voice grew louder. It now seemed to come not just from the speaker, but from beneath the floor itself. Suddenly, sounds from his own apartment began to emerge from the receiver. He heard the whistle of his kettle. He heard the creak of his chair. And then, the sound of his own heavy breathing, but with a 2-second delay. Stepan unplugged the receiver, but the buzz, buzz, buzz didn't disappear. It grew louder. It came from the walls, from the ventilation, from inside his own head.
What do you want?
He screamed into the void.
We need a conduit.
The voice answered from the unplugged receiver.
The signal is weakening. The veil is tearing. If we stop, they will all enter.
Stepan walked to the window and recoiled. The city below had vanished. Instead of streets and factories, he saw an endless sea of gray static. Snow, like on an old TV. The people on the sidewalks were mere translucent shadows, blurring whenever the buzzer's signal grew weaker. He understood the terrible truth. UVB-76 was not a military station. It was an acoustic anchor. The frequency of 4,625 kHz created a vibration that held our reality together, preventing the noise from the other side from swallowing the world. And now, the station was dying. It needed a new power source, a human consciousness capable of resonating with the ether. Stepan felt his fingers begin to vibrate. He looked at his hands. They were becoming grainy, as if made of millions of black and white dots. His vision flickered, showing frames that weren't in reality. Empty cities filled with faceless beings just standing and waiting for the sound to be turned off.
I don't want to.
He cried, grabbing a hammer to smash the receiver. But his hand passed through the metal like smoke. He was no longer solid. He was becoming a radio wave himself.
You are the frequency.
The voice boomed.
You are us.
Stepan felt his brain stretch, turning into a long copper wire. His memories, childhood, the smell of his mother's pies, first love, all turned into digital codes. 74, 180, 09, 15. He saw thousands of others like him, radio operators, obsessive listeners who had tuned in too precisely. Their souls were fuel for the monotonous buzz. Their collective scream was the very sound he had listened to every night. They buzzed so the world wouldn't hear their true voice. His body finally disintegrated. In the apartment on the outskirts of Zaporizhzhia, only empty clothes remained on the floor, and an old radio that continued to work without power. The next morning, Stepan's neighbor, Victor, knocked on the door to borrow some salt. He found the door unlocked and stepped inside to a mess of scattered parts and a strange white dust on the carpet. On the table stood the Okean receiver. From it came the familiar bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. Victor turned to leave, but the signal broke.
Attention.
A new voice rang out. It was male, hoarse, and strangely familiar.
M.D.C.H.B. 22401. Victor 1200. Over.
Victor froze. From the speaker came the sound of him scratching the back of his head, and then Stepan's quiet whisper, seemingly from inside the receiver.
Victor, help me. It's so noisy here.
Victor reached out to turn it off, but as his fingers touched the plastic, a jolt of electricity surged through him. The world before his eyes became grainy for a moment. On the frequency 4,625 kHz, a new cycle began. The station received a fresh signal. The veil became a little stronger. Somewhere in the shortwave band, Stepan now eternally repeated his name, becoming part of the great silence that guards the world from madness. And Victor stood in the middle of the room, feeling a faint, monotonous buzzing begin to take root in his own teeth.